من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح ما أغلق والخاتم ما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراط المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العليم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. الحمد لله الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو. الحمد لله الذي أتم نعمته علينا. الحمد لله الذي أخرجنا من الظلمات إلى النور. الحمد لله الذي هدانا إلى الحق. الحمد لله الذي خلق سبع سماوات فوق عباده بدون عماد. الحمد لله الذي أرسل نبيه بدينه ليظهره على الدين كلهم أجمعين ولو كره الكافرون والمشركون والمنافقون. الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونتوكل عليه ولا نعبد إلا إياه ولا نستعين إلا إياه ولا نتوكل إلا عليه وإنما هو خير ناصر وعليه فليتوكل المؤمنون. ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ونعوذ به من شر عدونا إبليس رجيم وأوليائه وانصاره وأصحابه. ثم نصلي ونسلم على من لا نبي بعده. ثم نصلي ونسلم على سيد الرسل. نصلي ونسلم على أشرف المرسلين. ثم نصلي ونسلم على خاتم النبيين على من لا نبي بعده. ثم نصلي ونسلم على أهله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. So welcome to everybody. We are very happy to be with you today. We are on Wednesday, the 3rd of March 2016. So welcome, and we wish you good following to our presentation. We are on Wednesday, the 3rd of March 2016. So today, if you are with us this afternoon, it is in order to further our presentations in Islam. Okay? If you and me, if you and us, we are or we have been created by God in order to worship Him. You and we have been created by God in order to worship God. Okay? And this is why we sometimes take some minutes here in order to remind each other of this goal. Okay? And if you and me and we have been created by God in order to worship Him, so we cannot worship God if we don't know God. Okay? You and we will not be able to worship God if we don't know God. And this is why we sometimes take some minutes here in order to remind each other of the goal of this creation. Okay? And as usual, it is not the first time we meet each other. Okay? It is not the first time. If we are together today, it is as usual. It is as usual. And the last time, we promised you to be with you in order to further, in order to continue our presentations. Okay? And the previous topic was about how do we really become Muslim? How do we really become Muslim? This was the previous topic, or this was the topic we had to present to you last time. And at the end of this topic, we promised you to be with you in order to further our presentations. And this is why we are with you this afternoon with the beliefs of God. Okay? And the topic of today, so the previous topic was about how do we really become Muslim? How do we really become Muslim? And at the end of this topic, I promised you to present you another topic about the 6 pledges of Islam, because during the presentation of the previous topic, so I had to tell you about some pledges in Islam, okay, and I didn't get to develop them as it might be, okay, and I promised you to present you another topic where I will develop you all the details about the 6 pledges in Islam, and this is this topic, or this is the topic of this afternoon, okay. So I'm not going to tell you first the 6 pledges, but I'm going to repeat what I said to you last time about how do we really become Muslim. How do we really become Muslim? So I will repeat you this before I give you, or before I develop for you the 6 pledges in Islam, because the first part is very important and more important by or than the second part, okay, so that you may give or you might take pledges. So this is on condition that you become Muslim. This is on condition that you become Muslim, and this is why I'm not going to give you, or I'm not going to determine you the 6 pledges first, but I'm going to give you first, or to determine you first, how do you really become Muslim, like I did it last time. But I'm going to give you, or to determine you, how do you really become Muslim one, but in general, it will not be as last time, okay, as general. And this is what I said to you last time, that we are not born Muslim, but we must become Muslim, okay. This is what I said to you last time, that we are not born Muslim, but we must become Muslim, okay. We are not born Muslims, but we must become Muslim, okay. And I proved it from the Quran and from some hadiths of the Prophet, okay. And generally, to tell you here that if we are born, we have been created by God like this. This is what God says in chapter number 76 and verse number 1, 2, and 3. Chapter number 76, verse number 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and this is what God says: has there come upon man a period of time when he was nothing to be mentioned. So we created man from a liquid mixture to test him, okay, to test him, and this is why we gave him, this is why we made him hearing and think, okay. God says here that He has created man to test him, to tell you here that God is going to test you. God is going to test you in order to know if you will become Muslim or you will become disbeliever. This is why God says that He will test you. You are here in order to pass a test. And this test, God says that be he appreciative or unappreciative. Be he appreciative or unappreciative. And now this is this test. You are going to pass this test. Either you become disbeliever or you become believer. Either you become appreciative to our God or you become disbeliever or unappreciative to our God. And this test, this exam is about multiple choice question. Multiple choice question, you are going to choose either to become a Muslim or to become a disbeliever or unappreciative to our God. This is why God says that He is going to test you. And if God says here that either or be he appreciative or unappreciative, to tell you here that you are neither appreciative nor unappreciative. But God is going to, you yourself are going to choose either to become appreciative or unappreciative. To tell you here that you are neither appreciative nor unappreciative. Okay, this is the first way or the first chapter which says you that you are not born Muslim, but you must become Muslim. Okay, and this is what I said to you last time, that if you, after your maturity, it belongs now to you to choose either to become Muslim or disbeliever. Okay, and if you must become Muslim, I'm going to determine you how it must do. Okay, how it must be done, or you must how you must become Muslim. Okay, and this is the first chapter which informs you that you are not born Muslim, but you must become Muslim. After this chapter also, in chapter number 90, verse number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. In chapter number 90, verse number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. God says there, so we created man in distress. Does he think that no one has power over him? He says, I have used up so much money. Does he think that no one sees him? Did we not give him 2 eyes and a tongue and 2 lips? And we guided him to the way, or we guided him to the 2 ways. We guided him to the 2 ways. And the 2 ways here are your appreciation and your unappreciation. Either you become Muslim or you become disbeliever. Okay, it is the same question here, and it is the same word. It is the same word here. Either you become disbeliever or you become believer. Be you appreciative or unappreciative toward God. Okay, and after this, I gave you also a short thought about a short logical thought, and which was about I told you last time that if we were born Muslims, why have the messengers been sent by God? If we were born Muslims, why the messengers have been sent by God? This is an interrogation here. It is a question here, and you must respond to this question. If you and me have been created Muslims, or if we are born Muslims, so now why God has sent the messengers? Why the messengers have been sent by God? Okay, and if God sends messengers here, it is in order. If God sends messengers here, it is in order to believe in them or to disbelieve in them. Okay, messengers have been sent by God in order to believe in them or to disbelieve in them. Okay, messengers have been sent by God in order to believe in them or to disbelieve in them. Okay, and if you see that God sends messengers to tell you here that God knows that everybody will not be Muslim or everybody is not Muslim. This is why He sends messengers so that we may believe in them or we disbelieve in them. And thus, whoever will believe in the messengers and in God will be in paradise, and whoever disbelieves in the messengers and in God will be in the fire. Okay, and this is a short example or a simple example God made for you here to say you here that you are not born Muslim, but you must become Muslim. And it is now, where is now the question? The question is that if you are not born Muslim, so now how can you become? Okay, or how must you become Muslim? How do we really become Muslim? This is now the question, and this topic is not about this chapter. Okay, this topic is not about, or this tape is not about this chapter. but I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you it in order so that you may know it. Okay, I told you last time that if you want to become Muslim, so it is a question of faith. It is a question of faith. You have to look for the faith here. It means that you have to believe. You have to believe. Okay, and this is the basic element. This is the basic element of your religion. Your religion, so you have to look for this first before starting worshiping God, before starting praying. So you have to look for this first. Okay, you have to look for faith, because prayer has not been prescribed for everybody, but it has been prescribed only for believers. Okay, and this is the first thing you must look for in Islam. Okay, before starting anything, before starting doing anything, so you have to look for first, you have to look for the faith, because the faith is the key of everything in Islam, and the faith is the key of permission and prohibition and acceptation. Okay, this is why the question of the faith is very important. It's a very important question because it is the basic element. It is the first element you have to look for. Okay, and this is why God says in chapter number 5, verse number 5. In chapter number 5, verse number 5, God says that وَمَنْ يَكْفُرُ بِالْإِيمَانِ فَقَدْ حَبِطَ عَمَلُهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. وَمَنْ يَكْفُرُ بِالْإِيمَانِ فَقَدْ حَبِطَ عَمَلُهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. This is what God says in chapter number 5, verse number 5. God says that, and whoever rejects faith, his work will be in vain, and in the hereafter he will be among the losers. Okay, and whoever rejects faith, his work will be in vain, and in the hereafter he will be among the losers. To tell you here that if you have not, if you don't get, or if you don't have faith, your work will be in vain. God will not accept your work if you have not have faith. You have to look for faith first before starting doing anything in Islam. Because if you don't have faith, so your good work will not be accepted by God. This is why I said you that the faith is the key of everything in Islam. If you don't have faith, so your good work will not be accepted by God. Okay, and it is God here who is informing you here that if you have not, or if you don't have faith, so your good work will be in vain, and in the hereafter you will be among the losers. Okay, this is why I said you that it is a very important question. You mustn't play with the question of faith. And this is what the Prophet says also, لَمْ تَدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ حَتَّى تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَا تُؤْمِنُوا حَتَّى تَحَابُوا. لَمْ تَدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ حَتَّى تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَا تُؤْمِنُوا حَتَّى تَحَابُوا. This is what the Prophet says, that nobody will be in the paradise, or nobody will enter the paradise unless he believes, unless he has believed. Okay, nobody will enter paradise unless he has believed. Okay, to tell you here that if you don't believe, you can't enter paradise. This is what the Prophet says. Nobody will be, or nobody will enter the paradise unless he has believed, or unless he believes. If you don't believe, the Prophet says here that you will not be in paradise. This is not possible. So that you may enter paradise, so this key is the faith. You have to believe. You have to believe. And if you don't believe, so you will not be able to enter paradise, because the Prophet doesn't lie. He doesn't lie. Okay? If he says that you will not be in paradise unless you have believed, so It is a true word here. The Prophet doesn't lie. Okay? To tell you here that you are not going to enter paradise without the faith. Okay? And this question is very important. Now, the matter is what? The matter is, where is now the matter? And I told you that it is this faith you have to look for first. And it is this faith which is going to permit you to enter in Islam. Now the question is what doesn't, or what does the faith consist of? Okay, what does the faith consist of? Okay, now it is a question. It is a question here. We are going to determine you the pillars, okay, the pillars of the faith, the pillars of the faith from the Quran and from the Hadith. Okay, and this is what I said to you last time, that the faith consists of 6 elements, or the faith consists of 6 pillars. So you have to believe in all those pillars. You have to believe in all those pillars, in all the 6 elements. The faith consists of 6 elements. Okay, so the first, this is when the Prophet was questioned, when he was questioned, or when he has been questioned about this question. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لما سئل عن الإيمان والإحسان والإسلام فقال الإسلام أن تعبد الله ولا تشرك به شيئا ثم تقيم صلاة ثم تصوم صوم رمضان ثم تؤدي زكاة ثم تحج البيت إن كنت تستطيع إليه سبيل والإحسان أن تعبد الله كما تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك والإيمان أن تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله ولقائه ورسله وبالبعث. So the Prophet, when he was questioned about this question, the faith, and he said, the faith consists of 6 pillars. The faith consists of 6 pillars, and I'm going to determine you the 6 pillars, like I did last time. Okay? The first, you have to believe first in God. You have to believe in God. You have to believe in God. This is the first pillar. You must believe in God. You have to believe in God. Okay? The second, you must believe in God's angels. You must believe in God's angels. You must believe in God's angels. Okay? The third, you must believe in all the scriptures. You must believe in all the scriptures. Okay? The fourth, you must believe in the hereafter, or the meeting of God. You must believe in the hereafter, or the meeting of God. The hereafter, or the meeting of God. Okay? The fifth, you must believe in all the prophets. You must believe in all the prophets. Okay? And the last one, you must believe in the resurrection. You must believe in the resurrection. And those are the 6 pillars of the faith. And you have to believe absolutely, okay, absolutely in the 6 pillars. In God, in His angels, in His scriptures, for example, the Quran, the Gospel, and the Gospel, the Quran, the Torah, and so on. This is the third. You have to believe in the scriptures, okay? And the fourth, you have to believe in the hereafter. The hereafter, the day you are going to meet God, and the day God is going to reward you of what you did. God is going to inform you of what you did. Okay? This is the third, the fourth. And the fifth, you have to believe in all the prophets. You have to believe in all the prophets. You have to believe in all the prophets. And that prophets, starting by our Prophet Muhammad, peace and salut on him. Okay? The Prophet Muhammad, the Prophet Jesus Christ, the Prophet Adam, the Prophet Noah, the Prophet Noah, the Prophet and so on and so on. You have to believe in all the prophets of God. Okay? And the last one, you have to believe in the resurrection. You have to believe in the resurrection. Okay? You have to believe in the resurrection. And that are the 6 pillars which have been reported from the prophets. This is what the prophet said about the faith, or about the pillars of the faith. And you mustn't play with the 6 pillars. This is very important. This is very important, and this is what God says, that if you don't believe in the pillars, so your good work will be in vain. It means that you will prefer not to work than to work, that your good work will be in vain. Okay? If you must work, so you mustn't work in order to work. You mustn't work in order to work, but you must work so that your good work may be accepted by God. If you work, you mustn't work in order to work, but you must work in order, or so that your work may be accepted. And God says here that if you don't have, okay, if you don't have faith, so your work will not be able to be accepted. Okay, so this is what the prophet says about the faith. After the prophet also, God informed us about the pillars of the faith. God informed us about the pillars of the faith. Okay, and this is what he says in chapter number 2, verse number 177. In chapter number 2, verse number 177. Okay, في سورة البقرة آية 177 من قوله تعالى: ليس بر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن بر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين. ليس بر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن بر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين. This is what God says in chapter number 2, verse number 177. God says that righteousness doesn't consist of turning your faces toward the east and the west, but righteous is he who believes in God, in the last day, in the angels, in the scripture, and in the prophets. Righteousness doesn't consist of turning your faces toward the east and the west, but righteous is he who believes in God, in the last day, in the angels, in the scripture, and in the prophets. It is God who is saying to you here that righteousness doesn't consist of turning your face toward the east and the west. Okay, to tell you here that praying or the prayer is not righteousness. But what is now the righteousness? And God says that righteousness consists here of believing in God. You have to believe in God. This is the first and the most important element you must look for in the religion. You have to believe in God first. Okay? After this, he says, you have to believe in the last day. It means here that the hereafter. You have to believe in the hereafter. The second. The third, you have to believe in the angels. You have to believe in the angels. The fourth, you have to believe in the scriptures. You have to believe in the scriptures. And the last one, you have to believe in the prophets. You have to believe in God. You have to believe in the last day, the hereafter. You have to believe in the scriptures, you have to believe in the scripture, and the last one you have to believe in the prophets. And these are what God listed in the Quran. But what the prophet has listed from the hadith were 6. But what God says here that are 5. And it is not a discrepancy here. It is not a discrepancy here, but for the prophets there are developed than for God. And if God says you 5 and the prophet gives you 6, there are the same here. There are the same flowers. But for the prophets, he has developed them for you. Okay? And I summarize by saying that you have to believe in the 6, what the prophet has reported. Okay? The first, you have to believe in God. The second, you have to believe in his angels. The third, you have to believe in his scriptures. The fourth, you have to believe in his meeting or the hereafter. The fifth, you have to believe in the prophets. And the last one, you have to believe in the resurrection. And if you believe in all these pillars, so we say that you have become now a believer. We say here that you have become now a believer because you have faith here. Okay, you have become now a believer, a true believer. Okay, and it is not okay that it's not okay yet, but this is what the heart does here, or this is what must be done by the heart. Okay, it is your heart which is going to believe or which has believed. So it is now the role of the tongue now. You are going to say or you are going to share what you have in your heart. Okay? You are going now to say, you are going now to speak in some words, you are going now to say or to tell what you have in your heart. Okay? And this is the second step. The first step was to believe, and it was the role of the heart. And now the second step is to say it. Okay? To say it. And this step will be done by the tongue. This second step will be done by the tongue. And I said to you last time that after you have believed in all the 6 pillars, so now you must look for somebody. You must look for a Muslim. You must look for a believer also. And you are going now to tell, you are going to say to this one that you have become Muslim. You are going to gather or to unite, to summarize all the 6 pillars in 2 words. Okay? The 6 pillars here, you are going to summarize them in 2 words. And the 2 words is that you will say to this body, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. So when you will be with this one, so you will say, I testify that there isn't any other God than God, the gracious, the merciful, and I testify that Muhammad is his prophet. Okay? I testify that there isn't any other God than God, the gracious, the merciful, and I testify that Muhammad is his prophet. I testify that there isn't any other God than God, and I testify that Muhammad is his prophet. This is what we say, or what we call in Arabic, Klela.Nobody. Klela.Nobody, it means here that the witness or the word of witness. Okay? The word of witness. If you say that I testify that there isn't any other God than God the merciful or the gracious the merciful, and I testify that Muhammad is his prophet. So here we say that you have become Muslim. Okay? We say here that you have become Muslim. And this is how you might become Muslim and not taking cattle and starting praying. Okay, it doesn't mean anything because the prayer has not been prescribed for everybody, but it has been prescribed only for believers. And here you have become now believer. And God says in chapter number 4, verse number 103, that the prayer has been prescribed for believers. So now we say here that you are authorized or you are permitted to pray now. And God says in chapter number 2, verse number 183, that the fasting has been prescribed for believers. Okay, and so on and so on. To tell you here that this step is the most important step. It is the most important. And after you have testified that there isn't any other God than God, so here we say that you have entered in a new thing. You have entered in a new thing, and this new thing is Islam. Okay? You have entered in a new thing, and this new thing is here Islam. You have entered in a new thing, and this new thing is Islam. Okay? And here we suppose that you don't know several things, you don't know many things in Islam. We suppose here that you don't know many things in Islam. We suppose here that you don't know many things in Islam. And this is why we are going to give you something else which will permit you or which will help you how or which will say you, which will inform you, which will determine you how or where to go, okay, where to pass, okay, where to sit down or where to get up, okay, and it is that thing or this new thing which will permit you how to go in Islam, how to sit down in Islam, or how to play in Islam, how to do anything in Islam. Okay, and there will be here, this new thing will be here a commandment, okay, commandment which will permit you or which will guide you, okay, which will guide you during the life of your Islam. And this is what I say or what I call the 6 pledges of Islam. And this is also why I titled this topic by saying that Mr Berthé, coming from Mali, the 6 pledges of Islam. So we have finished with the second step, which was about to say that you testify that there isn't any other God than God, and to testify that Muhammad is his prophet. After this step, so now the last step is to pledge allegiance. Is to pledge allegiance. Okay? This is the last step. The last step is to pledge allegiance. And last time I said to you that this topic will be about the 6 pledges. Okay? This topic will be about the 6 pledges. And it is now the 6 pledges you must pledge after you have testified that there isn't any other God than God, the merciful and the gracious. So here you are obliged here to pledge the 6 or to take the 6 plus the 6 pledges which will not come from me, but I'm going to to determine you them. I'm going to determine them you here from the Quran, from the different chapters of the Quran. Okay, so here the first chapter, which informs us about the 6 plagues. The first chapter, which informs us about, which informs us of the 6 plagues, is chapter number 2, verse number 26 and 27. Okay, in chapter number 2, verse number 26 and 27, God says that في سورة البقرة آية السادسة والعشرون والسابعة والعشرون من قوله تعالى إن الله لا يستحي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعوضة فما فوقها فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثل يدل به كثيرا ويهدي به كثيرا وما يدل به إلا الفاسقين الذين ينقضون عهد الله من بعد ميثاقه ويقطعون ما أمر الله به أن يوصل ويفسدون في الأرض أولئك هم الخاسرون إن الله لا يستحي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعوضة فما فوقها فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثل يدل به كثيرا ويهدي به كثيرا وما يدل به إلا الفاسقين الذين ينقضون عهد الله من بعد ميثاقه ويقطعون ما أمر الله به أن يوصل ويفسدون في الأرض. God says in chapter number 2, verse number 26 and 27, God does not shy away from making an example of a yet or something about it. As for those who believe, they will know that it is the truth from their Lord. But as for those who disbelieve, they will say, what did God intend by this example? He leads astray many thereby, and he guides many thereby, but he misleads thereby only evildoers who violate God's covenant after its confirmation. Who violate God's covenant after its confirmation. Who violate God's covenant after its confirmation. Who violate God's covenant after its confirmation and sever what God has commanded to be done and commit evil on earth, that are the losers. Okay? So here God says that He will mislead the evildoers. He will mislead the evildoers. And now the question is what? Where is now the question? Who are the evildoers? God says here that He is going, or He will mislead the evildoers. Okay? And now the question is where? Who are the evildoers? Who are the evildoers? God says that those who violate God's covenant after its confirmation. Those who violate God's covenant after its confirmation. Okay? It is God here who is determining you about the evildoers. And He says the evildoers are those who violate God's covenant after its confirmation. And I ask you here, why didn't God say those who violated God's covenant after its confirmation, but He said those who violate? I ask you again, why didn't God say those who have violated God is covenant after its confirmation. But he said, those who violate God's covenant after its confirmation. And this verb is in the simple present. But this verb is not in the present perfect, is not in the simple past, it is not in the past. Okay? But the verb violate is in the simple present here. This violate, this verb violate is in the simple present. God says there, those who violate God's covenant. But he didn't say those who have violated or those who violated. But he said those who violate in the simple present. And this is what we call during the reading of the Quran. This is what we call the omnipresence. The omnipresence, it means that if God says those who violate its confirmation, to tell you here that this verb didn't concern or doesn't concern only the believers of the time of the Prophet, but it concerns the believers of today and the believers of tomorrow until the hereafter. Until the hereafter. Okay? If it concerned only the believers of the time of the Prophet, so God will have said those who violated, or those who have violated. And it will mean here that it concerns only the believers of the time of the Prophet. But he says those who violate. It means that you are concerned and me am concerned. Everybody is concerned. The believers of today and the believers until the hereafter. And God says that who violate God's covenant. And the question is where? What is now this covenant? Have you ever covenanted with God? Have you ever covenanted with God? Have you ever covenanted with God? Question mark. It is now an interrogation. It is a question here. If God says that those who violate God's covenant after its confirmation, and you haven't or you have never covenanted with God. You have never covenanted with God. But God says here that those who violate God's covenant, to tell you here that this is the first chapter which points out a covenant in Islam. This is the first chapter which points out a covenant in Islam. To tell you here that you must have a covenant in Islam, so that you may violate God's covenant. So this will not be possible if you haven't taken or if you haven't covenanted with God about any covenant. Okay? Here to tell you that you must have a covenant in Islam. You must have a covenant, you must have a pledge in Islam. And now the question is where? This is the first chapter which is about the 6 pledges, or which informs us about the 6 pledges. Okay? After the chapter also, in chapter number 5, or before chapter number 5, in chapter number 3. Okay? This was in chapter number 2. Now in chapter number 3. In chapter number 3, verse number 77. In chapter number 3, verse number 77. In chapter number 3, verse number 77, في سورة آل عمران آية 77 من قوله تعالى: إن الذين يشترون بعهد الله وأيمانهم ثمنا قليل أولئك لا خلق لهم في الآخرة ولا يكلمهم الله ولا ينظر إليهم يوم القيامة ولا يزكيهم ولهم عذاب أليم. إن الذين يشترون بعهد الله وأيمانهم ثمنا قليل أولئك لا خلق لهم في الآخرة ولا يكلمهم الله ولا ينظر إليهم يوم القيامة ولا يزكيهم ولهم عذاب أليم. God says here that in chapter number 3, verse number 77, thus who violate the covenant of God, thus who violate the covenant of God, thus who violate the covenant of God and their vows will have no child in the hereafter, and God will not speak to them, nor will he look at them the day of resurrection, nor will he purify them, and they will have a painful punishment. Okay? Those who violate God's covenant, or those who violate the covenant of God, will have, and their babs will have no child in the hereafter, and God will not look at them, God will not speak to them, God will not speak to them, nor will he look at them on the day of resurrection, nor will he purify them, and they will have a painful punishment. They will have a painful punishment. Okay? Here, God says you here that he informs you here by saying that those who violate God's covenant, those who violate God's covenant, those who violate God's covenant. It is the same word here. When God says those who violate, but he didn't say those who violated, but he didn't say those who have violated the covenant of God. But he always says those who violate, but he never says those who have violated, or those who violated. To tell you here that it is the same question here. It is the same question. Why didn't he say those who have violated? Why didn't he say those who violated? But he said those who violate, the covenants of God. To tell you here that it is the omnipresence here. It is the omnipresence here. This verb concerns and the believers of the past. Okay, the first believers, the believers of today, and the believers until the hereafter. When God says those who exchange, it is not those who violate, but about the reading, there is a short mistake. Okay, there is a short mistake about the reading. The reading or the meaning of إن الذين يشترون in English is not those who violate, but God says here that those who exchange. Excuse me for the word. It was a mistake. Okay, it was a mistake about the reading. God didn't say those who violate, but he said those who exchange. Excuse me for the word. Okay, here, and it is the same question here. If God says those who exchange, I'm going to repeat the reading. Okay, I'm going to repeat the reading and the translation. Okay, إن الذين يشترون بعهد الله وأيمانهم ثمنا قليل أولئك لا خلق لهم في الآخرة ولا يكلمهم الله ولا ينظر إليهم يوم القيامة ولا يزكيهم ولهم عذاب أليم. So here God says that those who exchange the covenant of God and their vows for a small price, yeah, for a small price, will have no child in the hereafter, and God will not speak to them, nor will He look at them on the day of resurrection, nor will He purify them, and they will have a painful punishment. Thus, who exchange God's covenant and their vows for a small price will have no child in the hereafter, and God will not speak to them, nor will He look at them on the day of resurrection, nor will He purify them, and they will have a painful punishment. It is not to violate here, but it is to exchange. Okay? Right. Alright. So here when God says, those who exchange God's covenant, but why didn't He say those who exchanged God's covenant? Why didn't He say those who have exchanged it? But if He says what or those who exchange God's covenant, and the verb exchange here is in the simple present, but it is not in the simple past, it is not in the present or simple perfect, the present perfect, okay? But this verb exchange is in the simple present. And if God didn't put it in the simple past or in the present perfect, but He put it in the simple present to tell you here that the verb exchange concerns the believers of the time of the prophet and the believers of today and the believers until the hereafter. Until the hereafter. Okay? This is why God didn't say those who have exchanged. Those who have exchanged, but He said those who exchange. It is the omnipresence here. Okay? And here God says that His covenant and their vows for a small price. For a small price, what does it mean here? It means here that if you have, okay, so it means here that if you have covenanted, with God, so you mustn't exchange this covenant for a small price. Okay? This is why God says those who exchange His covenant for a small price. Okay? And now the question is, well, if God says those who exchange His covenant, have you ever taken a covenant with God? Have you ever taken a covenant with God? Or have you ever covenanted with God? No covenant. No covenant. Alright. So here to tell you that you have to have a covenant with God, because you will not, or it will not be possible for you to exchange God's covenant if you hadn't taken a covenant in Islam, so that you may exchange God's covenant for a small price. So you have, or you might have a covenant first. You cannot exchange something you didn't take. Okay? You cannot exchange something for a small price, the thing that you hadn't taken, so that you may exchange God's covenant for a small price. So this is on condition that you had, or you had taken a covenant with God. Okay? And God says here that those who exchange His covenant for a small price, to tell you here that, and when you will have this covenant, when you will have covenanted with God about this covenant, you mustn't exchange this covenant for a small price. Okay? When you will have covenanted with God about this covenant, so you mustn't exchange this covenant for a small price. You mustn't exchange this covenant for a small price. What does it mean? It means that after you have covenanted, after you have taken this covenant, so you have to pay attention and you have to do all your best in order to honor. Okay? In order to honor this covenant, you mustn't violate it, and you mustn't play with it. After you have taken this covenant, you have to do all your best in order to respect, in order to honor, in order to accomplish this covenant, but you mustn't play with it. And God says that if you exchange this covenant for a small price, there are some punishments here. There are some punishments here. God says that they will have no share in the hereafter. Will have no share in the hereafter. It means that you will have no share. You will have no part in the hereafter. This is the first. The second, God says that God will not look at them. God will not look at, or God will not speak to them. God will not speak to them, okay? Nor will He look at them on the day of resurrection. Nor will He look at them on the day of resurrection, okay? And here, nor will He purify them, and they will have a painful punishment, okay? So here to tell you, you must have a covenant. And after you have covenanted, you mustn't exchange God's covenant for a small price. Okay? And now, if you must exchange the covenant in Islam, so how can you exchange something you didn't take? How can you exchange something you hadn't taken? Okay? This is not possible. So that you may exchange something, so you will have taken that thing. Okay? And if God tells you here not to exchange His covenant, so you can't do this if you had taken something we call covenant. This is in chapter number 3, verse number 77. After the chapter, in chapter number 5, in chapter number 5, verse number 7, in chapter number 5, verse number 7, God says that في سورة المائدة آية السابعة من قوله تعالى واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم وميثاقه الذي واثقكم به إذ قلتم سمعنا وأطعنا فاتقوا الله إن الله عليم بذات الصدور واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم وميثاقه الذي واثقكم به إذ قلتم سمعنا وأطعنا فاتقوا الله إن الله عليم بذات الصدور. In chapter number 5, verse number 7, in chapter number 5, verse number 7, God says that, and remember God's covenant, God's blessings, and remember God's blessings, okay? And remember God's blessings upon you, and its covenant, and remember God's blessings upon you, and His covenant, which He covenanted with you when you said, we hear and we obey, and remind counsels of God, for God knows what the heart contains, and remember God's blessings upon you, and its covenant, which He covenanted with you when you said, we hear and we obey, and remind counsels of God, for God knows what the heart contains. Okay? And here, God asks you, okay? God asks you to remember His covenant or His blessings upon you. God asks you here to remember His blessings upon you. And what are now that blessings? That blessings are your two eyes, your two lips, your tongue, okay, your hairs, and so on. All that are the blessings of God. All that, your eyes, God has given you two eyes, okay, and He has given you a tongue with what you speak, okay, and He has given you 2 hairs with what you hear, and so on and so on. All this are God's blessings upon you. And God says you hear that you have to remember that blessings. After this, he says, and his covenant, and his covenant, and his covenant. God says, and his covenant. To tell you here that he didn't forget his covenant. This is why he didn't say only remember God's blessings upon you, but he added by saying that and his covenant, and his covenant. And he said, which he covenanted with you, which he covenanted with you. Okay? Which he covenanted with you. And it is God here who is saying, or we say here that he has covenanted with you. He says that he has covenanted with you and me. Okay? And this is trouble. This is trouble. Because if God says that he has covenanted with us, but truly, really, we didn't covenant with God. We have never covenanted with God. But it is God here who is saying that he has covenanted with us. But really, we didn't, or we have never covenanted with God. We have never covenanted with God, but God is saying here he has covenanted with us. But we haven't covenanted with God. And God is saying here that he has covenanted with us. And he added by saying that when you say it, we hear and we obey. When you said, we hear and we obey. This is rubber. How can you understand this? When God says he has covenanted with us, but we have never covenanted with God. And when God says, we say that we hear and we obey, but really and truly, we didn't say this. God says that he has covenanted with us. The first matter, we have never covenanted with God. The second, God says that we said that we hear and we obey. But we didn't say this also. Okay? So here is God who has lied, or it is we who must have a covenant in Islam. To tell you here that it is we who must have a covenant in Islam. Okay? After this chapter also, in chapter number 17, verse number 34. In chapter number 17, verse number 34. In chapter number 17, verse number 34. God says that في سورة الإسراء آية الرابعة والثلاثون من قوله تعالى ولا تقربوا مال اليتيم إلا بالتي هي أحسن حتى يبلغ شده وأوفوا بالعهد إن العهد كان مسؤولا ولا تقربوا مال اليتيم إلا بالتي هي أحسن حتى يبلغ شده وأوفوا بالعهد إن العهد كان مسؤولا. In chapter number 17, verse number 34, God says that, and do not go near the orphan's property except with the best of intentions until he has reached his maturity. And do not go near the orphan's property except with the best of intentions until he has reached his maturity. And honor your pledge because the pledge involves responsibility. And honor your pledge because the pledge involves responsibility. And honor your pledge because the pledge involves responsibility. And honor your pledge because the pledge involves responsibility. And honor your pledge because the pledge involves responsibility. What does it mean here? When God says, and honor your pledge, it means what? And honor your pledge. And honor your pledge, it means here that you must accomplish or you must respect. You must respect your pledge. Okay? You must do all your best in order to accomplish your pledge. Okay? You mustn't play with your pledge. The pledge here is the covenant. The pledge is the covenant. The pledge here or the pledge here is the covenant. You must honor your covenant or you must honor your pledge. Okay? And how can you honor something you hadn't taken? How can you honor something you hadn't taken? So that you may honor something, so you will have or you might take that thing or you will have taken that thing. You cannot honor something you hadn't taken. This is not possible. And so that you may honor something, so this is on condition that you had taken that thing. If I must honor my pledge, I cannot honor my pledge if I hadn't taken a pledge. If you must honor your pledge, you cannot honor your pledge if you had not taken a pledge. How can you do this? How can you honor your pledge? How can you honor your pledge even though you haven't taken any pledge? This is not possible. And God says here you to honor your pledge. God asks you and me to honor our pledge in Islam. Okay? After this he said, because the pledge involves responsibility. Because the pledge involves responsibility. That's trouble also. God says that the pledge involves responsibility. What does that mean? It means what here? When God says the pledge involves responsibility, it means what? It means here that everybody will be questioned about his pledge or about his covenant. Everybody will be questioned about his pledge or about his covenant. This is why God says in Arabic, إن العهد كان مسؤولا. It means that the pledge will be questioned. We will be questioned about the pledge. Everybody will be questioned about his pledge. Okay? And you who are listening to me now, how can you be questioned about something you hadn't taken? How can you be questioned about something you have never taken? This is not possible. So that you may be, okay, or so that you may be questioned about something, so you will have taken that thing. And if you have never taken something we call pledge or covenant, so you will not be able to be questioned about this covenant or about this pledge. To tell you here that if God says that to honor the covenant and the covenant or the pledge involves responsibility, to tell you here that it is here an obligation to have a covenant. And this covenant we will be questioned about. We will be questioned about this covenant. Everybody will be questioned about his covenant. And the covenant, it is this chapter which makes the 6 pledges here compulsory for any good believer. It is this chapter number 17 and verse number 34, it is this chapter which makes the 6 pledges compulsory for everybody or for any good believer. Because if the pledge is, or if the pledge involves a responsibility to tell you that it is compulsory, if it involves a responsibility, it means that it is compulsory. And if it wasn't compulsory, God would have not said that it involves a responsibility. But the responsibility here is the obligation. It is the obligation here, the responsibility. If your pledge involves a responsibility, so here your pledge is compulsory. Okay? And it is this chapter which makes the 6 pledges compulsory for any good believer. Okay? So now we have been speaking for a long time. We have been speaking for a long time, and now the question is, well, what is exactly the goal of this tape? What is exactly now the goal of this tape? Because I used to tell you or to say you covenant pledge. So now, what is the covenant? The question is about the covenant. What is now the covenant about? What the question is? The exact covenant or the exact pledge. And this is what God says in chapter number 60, verse number 12. In chapter number 60, verse number 12. Chapter number 60, verse number 12. And it is here, it is God who is going to determine us about the 6 pledges, or about the covenant, or about the pledge. About what the question is. Okay, in chapter number 16, it is not 16, but it is chapter number 60. The woman tested. Verse number 12. In chapter number 60, verse number 12, God says that في سورة الممتحنة آية 12 من قوله تعالى: يا أيها النبي إذا جاءك المؤمنات يبايعنك على أن لا يشركن بالله شيئا ولا يسرقن ولا يزنين ولا يقتلن أولادهن ولا يعصين ببهتان يفترينه بين أيديهن وارجلهن ولا يعصينك في معروف فبايعهن واستغفر لهن الله إن الله غفور رحيم. يا أيها النبي إذا جاءك المؤمنات يبايعنك على أن لا يشركن بالله شيئا ولا يسرقن ولا يزنين ولا يقتلن أولادهن ولا يعصين ببهتان يفترينه بين أيديهن وارجلهن ولا يعصينك في معروف فبايعهن واستغفر لهن الله إن الله غفور رحيم. Okay, so in chapter number 60, verse number 12, God says that, O Prophet, if believing women come to you, pledging you allegiance on condition that they will not associate anything with God, nor steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill their children, nor commit perjury, has to parenthood, nor disobey in anything which is righteous, accept their allegiance, and ask God's forgiveness for them. God is forgiving and merciful. O Prophet, if believing women come to you, pledging you allegiance on condition that they will not associate anything with God, nor steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill their children, nor commit perjury as to parenthood, nor disobey in anything which is righteous, accept their allegiance, and ask God's forgiveness for them. God is forgiving and merciful. O Prophet, if believing women come to you, pledging you allegiance on condition that they will not associate with God, They will not associate anything with God, nor steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill their children, nor commit perjury, has to parenthood, nor disobey in anything which is righteous, accept their allegiance, and ask God is forgiveness for them. God is forgiving and merciful. Okay, so here this is exactly what we said to you, or about what we were speaking. We have been speaking for a long time. Okay, and here this chapter involves many details. It involves many details. When God says, or what God says in this chapter involves many details. And the first point to be clarified is that this verse has been revealed after a hadith of the Prophet. You have to know first that this chapter or this verse has not revealed like this, but it has been revealed after a hadith of the Prophet. Okay? And it is after this hadith that this verse has been revealed. And this hadith is in the document we call Sahih al-Bukhari. Sahih al-Bukhari, when the Prophet was among his partners. النبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم لما كان في أصحابه يوما فقال بايعوني على أن لا تشركوا بالله شيئا ولا تسرقوا ولا تزنوا ولا تقتلوا أولادكم ولا تعتوا ببهتان تفترونه بين أيديكم وأرجلكم ولا تعصوا في معروف فمن وفى منكم فأجره على الله ومن أصاب من ذلك شيئا ثم عوقب في الدنيا فهو كفارة له ومن أصاب من ذلك شيئا ثم ستره الله فهو إلى الله إن شاء عفى عنه وإن شاء عاقبه فبايعناه على ذلك. The Prophet, when he was among his partners, when he was with his partners, he said, pledge me allegiance on condition that you will not associate anything with God, nor steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill your children, nor commit perjury, has to parenthood, nor disobey in anything which is righteous. And whoever accomplishes the 6 pledges will have his reward near God. But whoever misses something in the 6 pledges, and after he has been punished in this life, this punishment will be a forgiveness for that one. But whoever misses something in the 6 pledges, and he has not been punished in this world, in this life, so his matter belongs now to God. Okay? If God wills, he will forgive him. And if he wills also, he will punish him. Okay, and it is after this hadith, here the Prophet was among his partners. He was among his partners, and the partners here are men. They are men, they are not women. Okay, they are men here. And the Prophet asked them to pledge him allegiance on condition that they will not associate anything with God, nor steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill their children, nor commit perjury as to parenthood, or nor disobey in anything which is righteous. Okay? And at the end of this hadith, it is the partners who have terminated the hadith who have ended the hadith by saying that فَبَايَعْنَاهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ. They say that it is we all have covenanted, or we all of us, okay, all of us have taken this covenant the day the Prophet asked us to take them. All of us have taken the 6 pledges the day that the Prophet asked us to take. Okay, and it is after this hadith that after the Prophet has finished, okay, after the Prophet has finished with the believing men, and God wanted that the Prophet does the same for the believing women. After the Prophet has finished with the believing men, so God wanted that the Prophet does the same for the believing women, and this is why he has revised this verse that day by saying that if believing women come you. This is why God started the verse by saying that if believing women come to you. If believing women come to you. But he didn't say if women come to you. He didn't say if hypocrite women come to you. He didn't say if idolatrous women come to you. But he said if believing women come to you. Okay? To tell you here that even if the 6 pledges are compulsory in Islam, they are compulsory only for believers. This is why God didn't say if women come to you, but he said if believing women come to you. Okay? And here you have to know this verse, that this verse has been revised after a hadith. Okay? And after, when God says if believing women come to you, this is the second point to be clarified, to tell you that it doesn't concern everybody. The 6 pledges doesn't concern everybody. They have not been revised for everybody, but they have been revised only for the believers. This is why I said to you that you mustn't play with the question of the faith. Okay? The 6 pledges are not compulsory for everybody, but they are compulsory only for the believers. It is only the believers who are permitted or who are authorized to take them. Okay? This is the second point to be clarified. And the third point to be clarified, when God says, "O prophets," but he didn't say, "O people," and he didn't say, "O Muslims." So here, somebody or someone can understand these words by saying that the 6 pledges have or were compulsory only for the believers of the time of the Prophet, or it is only the Prophet who is allowed to receive the 6 pledges. Okay, so it is not like this. If God says, "O Prophet," so the Prophet was present in this moment. The Prophet was present in this moment. Okay, and you have to know that the death of the Prophet is not the death of Islam. Okay, the death of the Prophet is not the death of Islam. If the Prophet is died, so he didn't or he hasn't gone with Islam. If the Prophet is died, he didn't die or he is not died with Islam. This is what God says in chapter number 3, verse number 144. In chapter number 3, verse number 144, God says that the Prophet is only the Prophet. Nobody can become prophet after him, but we have to continue practicing our religion like it was during the time of the Prophet. Exactly like the Prophet was here. We must continue to practice our religion even if the Prophet is died, or even if after the death of the Prophet. This is what God says in chapter number 3, verse number 144. You mustn't stop practicing your religion because that the Prophet is died. If the Prophet is died, the Prophet is not died with Islam. It was the Prophet who was the leader of Islam, and after the Prophet there were some leaders, the first leader, the second leader, the third leader, the fourth leader, and so on. It was the Prophet who was calling people to Islam, and today, me, Mr Berthé from Mali, I'm calling people also for Islam. Okay, to tell you here that the Prophet is died only. Nobody can become Prophet after him. This is finished. This is finished. Okay, but we mustn't stop practicing our religion because of the Prophet is died. This is not a reason. This is not a reason. Okay, here to tell you that the 6 pledges are compulsory here, and anybody on condition that this one be a Muslim or a believer can receive and can pledge the 6 pledges. Okay, so here I'm going to make you a short explanation about these 6 pledges before I start. Okay, here if you say, for example, we were about the second step. The first step is to believe. The first step was to believe in all the pillars of the faith. After, the second step was to pronounce or to say that I testify that there isn't any other God than God, and I testify that Muhammad is his prophet. After this, now we are about the third step, and this third step is to pledge allegiance on condition that you will not associate anything with God, nor steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill your children, nor commit perjury, has the parenthood, nor disobey in anything which is righteous. You will not associate anything with God, nor steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill your children, nor commit perjury as to parenthood, nor disobey in anything which is righteous. And that are the 6 pledges about what the topic was. Okay? You will pledge that, or you will swear by saying that I will not associate anything with God, nor steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill my children or your children, nor kill your children, okay, nor kill my children, nor commit perjury, has the parenthood, nor disobey in anything which is righteous. If you say, for example, I will not associate anything with God, it means that you mustn't worship any other God beyond God. You mustn't worship any other God than God or beyond God. Okay? And you mustn't obey in any other thing or in something else by disobeying in God. You mustn't obey in something else by disobeying in God. Okay? The second, if you say I will not steal, it means that you mustn't take something which doesn't belong to you without the permission of its owner. Okay? The third, if you say I will not commit adultery, everybody knows the meaning of this. If you say I will not kill my children, this is the abortion, for example, the abortion, or to kill your children like you can understand it, or how you can understand it. the abortion, either the abortion or to kill your children after he has been born. Okay? And if you say, for example, I will not commit perjury as to parenthood, this is the fifth. And the last one, if you say, I will not disobey in anything which is righteous, so here it means that you mustn't disobey in God and in His prophet. Anything, anything God and His prophet will say you have to do it. You have to obey in God and in His prophet. You mustn't disobey in them. Okay? And this was what we had to tell you or to say you about the six pledges and about how to really become Muslim. Okay? And we thank you very much to have followed it. We thank you very much to have followed it. And I summarize by saying that you were listening to your brother in Islam. You were listening to your brother in Islam, Mr Berthé Issiaka. Mr Berthé Issiaka, you are listening to your brother in Islam, Mr Berthé Issiaka, coming from Mali, the Republic of Mali, the region of Sikasso, the third region of Mali, the village of Klela. Okay? You are listening to your brother in Islam, Mr Berthé Issiaka, coming from Mali, the Republic of Mali, the region of Sikasso, the third region of Mali, and the village of Klela, far from Sikasso of 45 kilometers between Sikasso and Kochala. The student who has no teacher in Islam, the student who has not learned the religion by a teacher. Okay, you are listening to the ambassador of the divine kingdom on earth. We thank you very much, and we promise you to be with you next time. Thank you very much.